Of course, I can say the Michaels or the Reggies or those, but the one I really hated to guard was Larry Bird. He was not a nice guy.
Larry Bird talked more trash on the basketball court than anybody I've ever played against. And he told me two things one game.
This is the story. I haven't seen it, but this is the story. Larry got the ball against John Koncak, and he's like, looked at the coach, he's like, you went with him on this matchup? And I guess Larry Bird just dropped the ball and said, man, I don't even want this shit.
Larry Bird had a way of making you regret guarding him, and he didn't need to say much to do it. But when he did talk, it cut deep. Bird didn't trash talk just for the show. He did it to gain an edge, break opponents mentally, and let them know exactly what was coming before it happened. He wasn't just showboating, he was backing it up, play after play. Bird didn't need social media to go viral. His trash talk traveled through locker rooms, highlight reels, and the stories were passed around by the players who experienced it firsthand. Larry wasn't the most athletic guy, and he didn't have a flashy look. But if you guarded him, he made sure you walked away embarrassed. He told defenders exactly where he'd shoot from, then did it in their face. He dared coaches to send someone better. And sometimes he didn't even wait for the ball to come to him. He'd start running his mouth while walking onto the floor. We're running through the best examples of when Larry Bird flat out disrespected NBA players, not with cheap shots or dirty plays, but with skill, confidence, and a mouth that never stopped moving. Eddie Johnson wasn't some random role player. He was a confident scorer who knew how to handle himself on the floor. But even that didn't prepare him for a game against Larry Bird, because Bird had a way of taking over before the ball was even tipped. Johnson remembers the moment clearly. The game hadn't even started yet, and Bird walked right up to him, looked him dead in the eye, and then it happened.
He walks out, and he just stands next to me, and he leans over and he looks at me. He said, do you honestly think you gonna guard me? You all think this rookie gonna guard me? Man, I'm gonna bust you up. He walks around, stands in front of me, he said, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'm gonna wear your ass out. Game starts, and he's just wearing me out. He came down, he said, you talking all that junk. I bet you can't do this.
That wasn't just a one-liner. It was a mission statement, and Bird followed through on every word. From the opening possession, he picked Eddie apart. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just pure confidence, backed up by buckets. What made it worse was how easy Bird made it look. It wasn't loud or theatrical, it was efficient, cold, like he already knew what would happen. Johnson tried to keep up, but by the end of the night, there was no question. Mark Price was a technician on the floor, smart, unshaken, and automatic from deep. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, but when it came to getting buckets, his game spoke volumes. Before the accolades, before the all-star nods, Price was just a young guard trying to prove he belonged among the league's best. That opportunity came during his first ever appearance in the NBA's three-point contest. Surrounded by elite shooters, he sat quietly in the locker room, taking it all in. The event was minutes away, but something, or someone, was missing.
Plan. My favorite three-point story of all time was my first time I ever competed. And of course, I don't know how they do it now, but they bring you in a locker room. You're all sitting there, kind of talking with one another, waiting for them to call you to go out. And Larry Bird was in the contest my first year, and everybody was in the room, but Larry wasn't there. And guys were kind of saying, anybody seen Larry? Whatever. And all of a sudden, right before we're supposed to go out, the door opens and Larry sticks his head in. And he says, oh, hey, guys, this must be the room for second place.
That was Larry Bird, no warm-up, no trash talk build-up. Just one line, simple, cold, and devastating. Then he went out and backed it up, winning the whole thing like it was already decided. For Price, that moment wasn't about showmanship. It was about presence. Bird didn't need to talk himself up. He just walked in, told the truth, and made you live with it. Craig Ehlo prided himself on defense. He wasn't the fastest or flashiest guy on the court, but he gave his all every night. He was the kind of player who'd take a charge, fight through screens, and do all the little things coaches loved. And when he faced off against Larry Bird, he wasn't backing down. There was a night in Cleveland when Bird wasn't shooting the ball well in the first half. It looked like Craig and the Cavs might be getting the better of him. And as both teams walked off the court through the same tunnel, Craig saw a chance to get a word in. What followed was one of those moments that stays with a player forever.
Larry Bird, he was not a nice guy. Matter of fact, there was one game in Cleveland where he was having a pretty rough first half, and in the old days in Cleveland, you walked off the court the same way at halftime, and I kind of puffed up on him and walked beside him and was like, yeah, you're 1 for 10. I was like, that's defense, you know, and he just kind of looked at me and said, there's 2 halves. And he came back out and hit about 10 in a row on me, and the last one was left-handed, and he asked me if my mother was watching because he wanted to embarrass me. So, yeah, so he was tough.
That was Larry Bird. He heard everything, remembered everything. And when he got back on the court, he made sure you did too. 10 straight buckets, capped off with a left-handed jumper, just for good measure. He didn't have to say much. He didn't need to yell. He just gave you that stare, said what needed to be said, and then torched you for the rest of the night. And for guys like Craig, that wasn't just a highlight. That was a reminder. You don't poke the bear, especially when the bear wears number 33 and has a jumper that doesn't miss twice. Rod Strickland didn't have a long history with Larry Bird. Their careers only briefly overlapped, and by the time Strickland was starting to find his rhythm in the league, Bird's body was already breaking down. But that didn't stop Larry from leaving an impression, even in just one play. There wasn't any build-up, no back and forth. Just a split-second moment in a regular game, and it stuck with Strickland for life.
I wasn't around long because he was hurt when I was playing that first year or second year. But I just remember one quick thing. We were playing against him, and I think I stole the ball from him. And I just remember him turning around saying, "You little piece of." And I was like, that, to me, that was Larry Bird. And I was so happy because I'm like, that Larry Bird told me you're a little piece of. You know what I'm saying?
That's how it was with Bird. He didn't need a crowd to get going. He didn't need to be healthy. He didn't even need to be winning. All he needed was a reason, and that reason could be as small as a rookie swiping the ball. But that's what made it unforgettable. Even in that quick insult, Larry made it feel meaningful. He wasn't trash-talking just to get under your skin. He was acknowledging you in his own twisted, legendary way. For a young player like Rod, that was a badge of honor. Because when one of the greatest to ever play the game turns and cusses you out, mid-possession, you don't walk away offended. You walk away with a story you tell for the next 30 years. Kevin McHale spent his entire career watching Larry Bird operate from up close, in practice, in the locker room, on the road, and under the lights. If there was anyone who understood how Bird's mind worked, it was McHale. And even he couldn't believe some of the things Larry pulled off. Before one game, the Celtics were hanging around, going through the usual routine. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then Larry stood up, and just like that, the switch flipped.
Larry stands up and Larry says, a couple other few choice words, and he says, "I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to take it out on their rear ends." So I was like, "Oh, all right, so let's go." So we go on the floor. Elbert King sitting there, and Larry walks up to Elbert King and goes, "Don't take this butt whooping personally. I've been eating hot dogs all day." And then Albert King looks at him like, "You've been eating hot dogs all day? What's that got to do with me?" And we went out and just hammered him. I mean, we terrorized him. And that was Larry. There was no excuses. I mean, he just played. And I tell you, that was just his competitive nature.
That was classic Bird. The man didn't need a pregame ritual, didn't need motivational speeches or warm-up fire. Just a few words, maybe a few hot dogs, and then straight to domination. And what made it more brutal was the way he let his opponents know ahead of time. He wasn't sneaky about it. He'd look you in the eye and tell you what was coming, and then make sure it hit exactly as advertised. Albert King never stood a chance. By the time the game started, Bird had already decided how it was going to end. Because for Larry, being great wasn't enough. He wanted you to know he could play through a stomach full of junk food and still run you off the floor. And somehow, that made it even more disrespectful. John Salley came into the league with swagger. He played hard, talked back, and wasn't afraid of anyone. But even with all the tough talk and intensity he brought, Larry Bird was a different beast. John had played against scorers. He had battled bigs. But Bird? He was something else. A guy who could embarrass you without raising his voice and still hit you with the most disrespectful line of the night.
Stack, you know how you play defense, you lean, and then they don't do this anymore, but they punt and they do a fadeaway? Mm-hmm. Right? Everyone did it, right? Guys would bang you and then fade away on one leg, try to be like, Wilt Chamberlain. Larry would hit you and go like this, and then you would fly by.
Shot fake.
And he'd be like, "Stupid."
Stupid.
I'm just constantly snapping, saying things like, yeah, oh my God, I'm gonna give you 50 tonight. You know, he was like, oh my God, they're not gonna throw you the ball. They're not gonna throw you the ball.
That was Bird at his coldest, calling you out mid-play, mocking your defense, and then calmly reminding you that your team doesn't even trust you enough to give you the ball back. He didn't need to out-yell you. He just had to outthink you. And when he did, which was almost always, he let you know with one word, one glance, one perfectly timed insult. And that fadeaway? It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast. But it was unstoppable. You'd lean into it, trying to contest. And by the time you realized what happened, the ball was already floating through the net and Larry was jogging back, shaking his head like it was just another Tuesday. For John, it was a reality check. Because when Larry Bird called you stupid, it wasn't personal. It was just the truth. Shawn Kemp came into the NBA like a storm. Athleticism off the charts, swagger through the roof. He was dunking on grown men with the kind of authority that made veterans take notice. And apparently, Larry Bird had been taking notes even before Kemp ever stepped on an NBA court. Most rookies might get a head nod, maybe a cold shoulder, but not Kemp. Larry had done his homework, and right from tip-off, made it known that this wasn't going to be a casual introduction.
Well, first of all, he asked me to jump ball. He said, "You the cat that broke all my records in high school, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Yeah, you're the one that used to dunk my brother too, right? Like Eddie." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "I got something for you tonight." So every shot he was calling, at the defensive end, he would tell me, he'd be like, "When I get down to the other end, I'm going to pump fake you, get a hand one on you, look at you, go off the glass." That's how cold Larry Bird was.
Bird didn't just know who Kemp was. He knew where he came from, who he played, and even who he dunked on. And just like that, what should have been a routine tip-off became a challenge. And Bird didn't waste any time. Possession after possession, he went at Kemp with the kind of confidence that left no doubt. He called the shot. He called the move. And he even told Kemp how he'd react afterward. That's next-level stuff. Most players try to surprise you. Larry told you the blueprint and then dared you to stop it. For Shawn Kemp, that game wasn't just a welcome to the NBA. It was a reminder that no matter how athletic you were, no matter how loud the hype got, Larry Bird could still take you apart piece by piece with a pump fake and a look. And the worst part? You saw it coming, and you still couldn't stop it. Byron Scott had seen his share of trash talkers. He played in the Showtime era, surrounded by legends facing legends. But even then, one guy stood out for talking just enough to get under your skin and backing it up every single time. Larry Bird wasn't out there yelling or screaming. He didn't need to. He'd wait for the right moment, hit you with a perfectly timed line, and then make you look silly for even trying to guard him.
Larry Bird talked more trash on the basketball court than anybody I've ever played against. And he told me two things one game. You know, our rotations, double teaming Kevin McHale, always had to rotate to the corner, and Larry Bird was the one shooting it. You know, so he shot one, and I mean, I'm trying to block this shot, and he would just tell me, "Scott, you're a little too late." You know, a little too late.
That's all it took. Just 5 words, said in rhythm with a jumper already on its way in. Not shouted, not barked, just dropped on you like a smooth insult from someone who's done this 1,000 times. Because with Larry, the moment didn't need to be loud. It just needed to sting. Scott was doing everything right, rotating, contesting, closing out. But Bird didn't care. He knew where the ball was going, knew how to get there, and knew exactly when to remind you that it was already too late. And when it came to trash talk, that was Larry's gift. He didn't just beat you. He let you feel it as it happened. Wilkins was one of the few players who could match Bird bucket for bucket. A pure scorer, a high flyer, a competitor who didn't get scared easily. But even Dominique, as fierce as he was, had a moment where Larry Bird reminded him that scoring wasn't enough. They were in the middle of a game, trading buckets, jawing back and forth. Wilkins wasn't backing down. He made a move, got past Bird, went up strong, and delivered a dunk with authority. He thought he got the last word, but Larry wasn't done.
And so the next play, you know, I'm pissed. So he comes out, he shifts to his right, and I jump. I said, I got him. And I'm pumping it by my hand, and I banged it on him, right? And he on the ground, he fouled me, and I'm pointing. And he said, "Hey, Rook." I'm like, "What?" He said, "I like you. You got balls." He said, "I'm still getting 30 on your ass tonight." He got about 37. Yeah. But I wasn't mad because I'm paying my dues. That's Larry, you know?
Right. Yeah.
That's Larry. No panic, no frustration. Just straight up respect followed by a reminder. You might win the battle, You might even dunk on him. But he's still dropping 30+ by the time the buzzer sounds and letting you know about it as he does. And the wild thing? Dominique didn't even take it as disrespect. Because in Bird's world, if he took the time to talk to you, especially mid-game, it meant you mattered. And if he told you he was going to score on you, you could set your watch to it. Reggie Miller wasn't the type to stay quiet. He made a Hall of Fame career out of trash talk, clutch threes, and getting under people's skin. But even Reggie had to learn the hard way. Larry Bird wasn't someone you could mess with. It was a regular game, nothing out of the ordinary. But at the free throw line, Reggie decided to try something subtle. A little psychological edge, just a small move to test Larry's focus.
I'm going to try to, throw off his rhythm, thinking I'm going to throw off Larry Bird's rhythm. And, as the official goes to give the guy the ball, you'll cross the lane, like, hold up, you'll cross the lane and, just try to ice the shooter a little bit. I did that once, and then I kind of did it again, right? So he gets the ball from the official dribblers once. He's like, Reggie, are you freaking kidding me? Reggie, are you fucking kidding me? I'm the best shooter this game has ever seen. You think you're gonna be able to ice me as he's talking? Next one, wah! Damn. I walked to the other side, and Kevin McHale goes, yeah, that was kind of stupid of you to do something like that, right?
That wasn't trash talk, that was a reminder. Bird didn't just shoot. He announced it, hit it, and then made you feel like a fool for trying to stop it. And when Kevin McHale tells you it was a dumb idea, that's when you know you messed with the wrong legend. Reggie learned that day, you don't ice Larry Bird, you just give him the ball and hope he's feeling generous. John Stockton wasn't easily rattled. One of the most composed and cerebral point guards the league has ever seen, Stockton came in with tunnel vision and a high basketball IQ. But even he couldn't forget the first time he saw Larry Bird in action, because Bird didn't just play the game. He announced it before it happened. It was Stockton's rookie year, new team, new league, new speed. He was still trying to process everything, and then Larry walked into the gym and casually said something that stopped everyone in their track.
I wasn't around Larry as much. I sure saw it. Even as a rookie, I came in. He walked into the gym and said, Coach, I think told our whole team, but to our coach, I think I'm going to have 42.
How many do you have?
He had 42 and then checked himself out of the game.
No way.
That's pretty impressionable for a young player.
That wasn't a prediction. That was a blueprint. Larry didn't say it for hype. He said it because he knew. He didn't need heat checks. He didn't need a rhythm. He walked in, told you what was coming, and then delivered it like a scheduled package. For Stockton, it wasn't just impressive, it was terrifying. Because how do you stop a guy who's already seen the game before it's even started? Dennis Scott came into the league with a shooter's confidence and a personality to match. He wasn't afraid of reputations, not even Larry Bird's, but the thing about Bird, he had a different way of talking trash, low volume, high impact. Scott had heard stories, he'd seen the highlights, but nothing hits like learning firsthand.
Bird was the only one that really kind of, in his soft-spoken way, when we talk about guys talking trash.
Yeah.
Hey, Rook, good to see you. Hey, great college career. I'm going to catch the ball. I'm going to pump fake. You're going to reach for it. You're going to get fouled. 2 tweets, you're going to have a seat. Lo and behold, Dan, he catches the ball. He pump fakes. I go for it. I reach. First foul. I come down court. Scott Skiles kicks me the ball. I shoot a 3 in your face, Larry Legend. Yes, I'm feeling good, Dan. He catches the ball again, catches it. My dumb self reaches for it again. Tweet, go have a seat. I see second quarter, Rook.
It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but it was surgical. Larry didn't just predict the play. He narrated the whole sequence, then made it come true down to the final whistle. And when he told you to go have a seat, you didn't argue. You walked to the bench and started taking notes. Larry Bird didn't need social media. He didn't need viral moments, and he sure didn't need to scream to get your attention. All he needed was a basketball and maybe one sentence. Whether it was a one-liner to Mark Price before a three-point contest, a death sentence whispered to Reggie Miller at the free throw line, or a subtle "see you later" to a rookie like Dennis Scott, Bird's brand of disrespect wasn't reckless. It was calculated. He didn't just talk, he didn't just score. He predicted, executed, and then let you sit with it. This wasn't just trash talk. It was a mental game. One where Larry always seemed 2 moves ahead. A cold look, a called shot, a moment that stuck with guys for years, even if it only lasted a few seconds on the court. And the craziest part? He made you laugh about it later, even if he dropped 40 on you that night. Because Larry Bird didn't just dominate the game, he owned the room while he was doing it.